What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode review for Trigun Stargaze. This is, what is this, episode 5?
Yeah.
Episode 5. But with me, as always, I have Loosepad.
Yeah. So we're following up on on what was it, on Mid Valley, the Horn Freak, who is of course a major character in this episode. Well, I mean, he was introduced in the last episode, but we get a little bit more of his backstory, seeing that he used to be like in a band, which I forgot what was that band called. You said it was
Well, I don't actually know if I don't know if they might have had the name for the band, but honestly I forget. But
yeah.
basically, like, yeah, in the beginning of the episode we see pretty much how Knives ended up recruiting Mid Valley, and it kind of makes sense why Mid Valley acts as reluctant as he does in the last episode to really kind of like help out Knives. Pretty much because he's more or less like doing it because if he didn't, that Knives would pretty much just kill him. Because Knives just kills like all of his bandmates and everybody there,
Yeah.
and pretty much just like, it more or less threatens him. If he doesn't join him, he's probably just going to kill him. So he doesn't really have a choice. So that kind of explains like why he is like I mentioned, like reluctant to really do what he does, but he doesn't really have much of a choice otherwise, unless he just wants to, is going to die. But considering the state the Knives is in right now, I don't think he really has to worry so much about that. He more so probably has to worry about, what was it? Legato Blue Summers, maybe like, doing something to him or whatever if he went against him.
Yeah. I mean, so Mid Valley, he makes it over to ship 3 first, and he confronts Wolfwood in a one-on-one fight. It sort of goes all right at first, and then Mid Valley, like, uses his I guess you can, his enhanced saxophone as both an offensive and a defensive weapon.
Yeah, we kind of get a little bit more about how his saxophone works and just how fast it is. Wolfwood basically like tries to, the whole time is like trying to sort of block the sound waves or use his gun to cancel it out. And then the whole time Wolfwood is pretty much just trying to convince Mid Valley that to just join up with him, and like I said, we kind of get a little bit of their history together, which see, this is another thing that it kind of frustrates me about the series is that somebody mentioned it in the comments of the last video we did for the last episode that and it has been a while since I've seen the original series, so I don't really remember Mid Valley as a character, but Mid Valley apparently was, I guess, one of the Gung Ho Guns. And I actually did not even remember him from the original series. Maybe that's because he just didn't really have any screen time in the original. But it is kind of interesting here how he's given like way more screen time, and we actually get to see his backstory. And apparently him and Wolfwood had some kind of a history. But my issue here is it's not exactly clear like what their history is. Is that all we get is that I guess they were friends in the past or they knew each other. And that's about it. I mean, we don't really get a lot about like, their friendship.
Yeah. That's kind of a problem, just due to this being a more of a, I would say, a more limited series in comparison to the original, because
Yeah.
they're not really giving as much time to these new characters that they're just introducing just right out of the blue. Same thing like they did with what was it, Emilio, who was the puppet master just a couple episodes ago. He gets introduced again in this episode, but they Vash asks him like if there's any way to counteract Mid Valley's saxophone abilities. So he recommends using like some kind of counter sound maneuver to to dispel his abilities in a way.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I think is what they end up doing to try to basically try to take get the upper hand. Wolfwood tries, well, in the fight with Mid Valley and Wolfwood, that's how they try to get the upper hand. Vash kind of takes him by surprise, and ends up like shooting the saxophone so that he can't really use it.
Yeah, and then of course, what was it? Wolfwood temporarily gets blinded during the fight after like I guess during a massive sound wave just temporarily blinds him. Um, so yeah, this pretty much like I guess at one point I really thought that Mid Valley was going to end up killing himself or stabbing himself with the neck with a piece of that saxophone, but I guess through Vash's convincing, it just stops him from doing so. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Like Vash basically like more or less ends up like talking him out of of doing it, and tries to pretty much like tries to convince him to join up with them.
Yeah, and yeah, and then it's just, and then of course they still have to deal with the bigger threat in which they have to deal with Legato now, in which we see Legato like pretty much he's not surprised that Mid Valley was like not only defeated but he just pretty much like ends up joining up with Vash's crew. So now Vash and the others are going to have to find a way to deal with Legato, and the rest of was it Knives' entourage in their upcoming attack at Ship 3.
Yeah. Uh, I thought it was honestly like this wasn't one of the better episodes. But like you mentioned, the problem is just that we people that aren't familiar with, especially people that aren't familiar with the original series, I think are just going to be so lost as to like, especially like what Wolfwood and Mid Valley's relationship really was. I mean, I don't even think they really go over this at all in the original series. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I just don't remember any of this. So I mean, I guess it's interesting that we get something new, but at the same time, it just feels like it kind of like, we don't really have any. I feel like we should have had a little bit more of their backstory before this point. Like especially before this fight. Like maybe we should have gotten like more of a flashback sequence with them, or maybe a whole episode with them, just so that we got to know more about their friendship, so that we kind of understood better like what their whole dynamic was, because it only really gets brought up in this episode.
Yeah, it's still unfortunate that well, we're only like what halfway through this season now, and it seems like I don't know. The pacing is also weird because like now they're having to deal with like this massive attack in the ship, and then we still have like maybe half the season left to cover.
Yeah, I mean, the pacing just continues to be an issue with the series, unfortunately. The main problem, of course, is just the season is too short, and it just doesn't have enough time to cover all of what it really needs to. So I mean, it's just gonna have this. I feel like it's just going to unfortunately end up having the same issues as the first season.
Yeah, and then of course they keep teasing us with that whole interaction between Wolfwood and Millie, which we all know like they had it like a major you could say relationship.
Well, that's another thing that the show is going to at least have to dedicate some time to, is if they're going to go that direction. But this is an issue where it could have been addressed by Millie having been in the first season, but of course, as we know, that didn't happen. So now we only have like this season for them to really even establish that relationship.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope they really get into it, but with the next episode or probably two, they're gonna have to dedicate their time with with the fight against Legato. So I don't think they're gonna focus much on Millie. At least that's what I think so far. But it's right now. It's like it's another thing that pisses me off is like they dropped the ball of not introducing Millie as one of the main characters back in in the original season. In the last season of Stampede. By the way, I really
Yeah.
felt like they could have benefited her with as one of the main characters in that season rather than just being straight up replaced by a totally different character.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about the episode. Like it was like I said, it was one of the better ones, but it still has its own share of issues. But yeah, I don't have much else to say about it, though. I don't know if you have anything else to say.
Yeah, I mean, the fight between Wolfwood, uh, a- and the what was it, the Horn Freak is, I'd say it's somewhat decent. Uh, it, but then like now it's like we're gonna have to wait like a week after just to see what's gonna happen between with the fight between Vash's crew and and Legato now, and
Mm.
also the fact that like they they're like of course they're going out of their way to to steal plants to revive Knives, but they know for a fact, they confirmed this to themselves in the last episode, that they will feel Knives' wrath if if he finds out that they've been sacrificing plants just to revive him, because we know for a fact that Knives like cares deeply for like his own particular kind.
Yeah, I guess it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to knowing that that's how he was brought back to life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that all being said, guys, until next time, we will see you all later.